These are some of the materials we'll be using for today's assignment. We're going to be creating a slump mold over top of a form. Hopefully you have major form. And again, you'll be making those with newspaper. See the previous video to make your own design. And then you'll be using clay. You need something to roll it out. So right now we have a rolling pin. It could be something like flat that has you can roll across your clay. If you don't have anything, that is totally fine. You can just use your hands and keep turning your clay to create an even flatness across all of it. Some of your tools, slip to attach pieces once we have them laid out. So first thing you want to do is you're going to be wedging the clay. You're going to want to flatten out your clay. So if you keep rotating your clay over and over, so there's no one uneven area, you can press down with your hand. Just makes it a little bit easier before you put the rolling pin or whatever material you're going to use to roll out the clay. It also prevents your clay from sticking to your surface. All right. Next, you want to use your rolling pin or whatever material you're going to use, trying to create an even surface. You want to try to keep it relatively medium thickness, just so that you can always cut pieces away or cut through it while it's still, so it won't be super weak when you do that. And again, you still want to keep rotating your clay. It helps to roll out your clay in multiple different directions. Again, to keep it even. And then if you have air bubbles like you see in this spot right here, just cut them open. So this is a pretty good thickness for our design. Again, make sure you are making your clay area larger than your mold or your form, so that when you drape it over, you have area to cut it down. If there is a spot that's not long enough, so say we were making this, but we were missing a section here, you can cut your top piece off, drape it over the piece that needs more clay, and then just blend them together with your fingers, and then roll them with your rolling pin or try to flatten them out with your hands on both sides. So we're going to bring in our slump mold, and what we're going to do is drape our project over it, or our clay. From this form, what you're going to use is your fettling knife, and you're going to cut your design to your dimensions. So ours is more of a rectangle or oval shape, and so that's why it's a little bit longer at the top and the bottom. And so we'll need to trim off the sides here to bring it sort of to that dimension. You can also just, if you want, you can just draw your overall design prior to cutting it. Make it a little bit easier. And so you sort of have an idea of where it's going to go. Cutting off this extra clay will help your project settle so it doesn't like drape off the side. Like so. So what you're going to do next is sort of form your shape. So I might still have a little bit too much on the side. So this is, you don't want to cut too much off in the beginning. So we'll go back here a little bit and cut off a little bit more. One thing I suggest is once you have your form like this, if you want to just use a little bit of water or from your slip, just go around the edges here just to smooth off the part where you just cut, and so that when it dries it won't be like sharp or hard. So just smooth off your edges here, unless that's part of your design. It just makes it a little bit easier, especially once it dries. You don't want it to be rigid and be too tough to like handle. So we have a pretty good form here for our design. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to wedge some more of this extra clay that we had, and now we're going to start to devise and create some of our features that we're going to put attached to our surface. So we created an additional piece here to start to develop some of our forms to go onto our actual mask. When you're making your additional pieces, they do not need to be as thick as the main piece. But this being because there already is a large surface area, so these are just additional pieces that you're going to be slipping and scoring onto your surface. And so they could be a lot thinner. It makes it a little bit easier so they don't weigh down your mask or create any possible air bubbles. So what we're going to try to do is we're going to make our form that we're going to add to our surface. So you can lay it on top of your design if you like. So this is sort of our eyebrow slash nose piece. So I'm going to draw it first with my K95 cleanup tool, or you can use your wood sculpture tool, or if you need to, your fettling knife. Try to make it symmetrical since my design is symmetrical. If your design is not symmetrical, no worries. So you can go back and clean up all those extra like drawing lines, since we won't really need them. And again, I'm trying to do the same thing. I'm just smoothing off the edges there, just from my knife mark, so it's not like hard. This is where I would be eventually applying this feature, like so, and sort of has like this like scowl top of the eyebrow nose piece. What I would like to do first, though, is if you think you're going to have any surface treatment, apply that first to your design. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make this look like wood before adding this piece on. Now that I have my design etched onto my overall form, my next step is going to be attaching the piece, like the cowl piece, which would be like the eyebrow nose combination. So it looks a little bit better now that I applied some of the surface treatment, being that I want them to be sort of contrast each other, so they're different, and so it makes it a little bit more visually interesting rather than being all the same sort of texture or all the same like flatness. And so now the wood design and the like non-wood like separate pieces look like they go against each other. So now the next piece would be to slip and score them to attach them. So try to figure out where you want them to be lined up. Thinking sort of higher up here. Just gonna make a little lines here so I know where I want the pieces to be. There you go. Since there's already a lot of lines on here, I'm just gonna make a few more to attach. Bring in the slip. Just want to try to get some, even though the clay, especially if your clay is really wet or soft still, it makes it a little bit easier. So don't really let it try to dry out. So now that we have those, try to line them up with the marks I made. There we go. So I'm going to press it down a little bit just to make sure there's a good attachment. My next step here is going to be going around the edges with my sculpture tool and just sort of pressing it in just to make sure the attachment is really on there, because I don't want it to pop off if it's going into the kiln, or I don't want it to pop off if they're drying. So that's my next step. So you want to get as close as you can underneath here. Even though you might have surface texture on there, you can always just go over and redraw those like little pieces you missed, or that you're going to mess up with attaching the two pieces together. Here we go. So now we have our two pieces attached. I can go back now and apply any surface treatment to this new piece I just created. I also can go back and update my wood grain or whatever surface texture you have on your piece, or begin sculpting more additional pieces that are going to be added to your overall design. For the rest of this video, I will be assembling the mask and finalizing it by rolling out pieces and adding details using my sculptural tools, and then slipping and score them onto the surface, and then adding any last minute details I might need before I'm going to let it dry. So the rest of this is going to be a montage of seeing the whole process from where it is now till its finished state.